You guys ever have a hot take or like a take that you know is going to be controversial or outright despised, but it's just eating you away? Like you're watching a really crap movie and it's just burning inside about how much it sucks, but everyone else had a fun time. And am I going to be the jerk that ruins their fun? You know what I mean. That kind of feeling's the worst. So, with that being said, G1 Devastator kind of sucks ass. Devastator. He's one of the absolute icons from G1, isn't he? Like, even if you're not super well read on Transformers, people know him immediately. He's the big guy made out of smaller guys. He can stand alongside all the other classics like Optimus Prime, Megatron, Billy, Wally, and the one who had cancer. I mean, he's six toys in one. What's not to love? Though I gotta say, I'm not as super into combiners as I thought I'd be for Transformers. Even though I should love them. I'm a huge fan of the Megazords from Power Rangers or Voltron. I even own a few, and those are a similar concept, so why am I not as into Transformers doing it? By the way, whenever there's a robot made of smaller robots in fiction, my dad calls them a Megazord, regardless of if it's Power Rangers or not. I kinda love that. Anyways, I think it's because, from my experience, a lot of Transformers combiners tend to be a bit clunky looking. You compare it to how a lot of Megazords look, there usually is a certain design language throughout, something that links them together and results in a cleaner design. A lot of Transformers combiners tend to look like, well, just a bunch of robots glued together, and even if they have a proper theming and design language, that doesn't guarantee quality. But I get it! I get the appeal! And when a combiner works out, they could be some of the best Transformers out there. Leo Kaiser, Tidal Wave, Predaking, Movie Devastator, both big and small. Love them. So it's interesting to have Devastator here, the one that started it all, and it's so frustrating. Let's just dive right in. So here are the Constructicons themselves. We got Scrapper, Long Haul, Bone Crusher, not that one, Scavenger, Hook starring Robin Williams, and of course, and as individual figures, they're adorable. G1 figures weren't the most articulated or detailed, but come on, these guys are cute. Particularly love Bone Crusher's goofy tank tread feet. These guys are great for forming just little backup soldiers for the Decepticon armies. Also, this here is the G2 version of Devastator, which makes him bright yellow instead of green, and gives him tattoos so he can remind you what side he fights on. Though weirdly, the set I got with him has his original G1 fist, which has his rocket punch gimmick intact, whereas G2 removed that. I don't know what's more confusing, that they replaced it, or the fact that G2 actually took away a crazy gimmick. Articulation is limited, but serviceable for the time period. I can't complain too much, given these guys were probably, what, $5, $6 at the time? And the transformations, par for the course for G1, are nice and simple, forming cute little construction vehicles easily. They kind of remind me of miniature Tonka trucks. And all their bits move about too. Spinning wheels, movable shovels, spinnable mixers, dumpable dumps, and a spinning crane. Just pretend the hook isn't missing. So all in all, cute robots and good vehicles. This by itself would have been really good at the time. So let's get the big robot out. Oh, but first we need these. Yeah, Devastator is a bit of a parts former, and I know this is still the early days of combiners and Transformers in general. Even the Combiner Wars version kinda has this, but it's kind of a pain to me, especially because these bits could easily get lost, making finding one secondhand all the harder. Luckily, the arms and legs are transformed pretty simply. I quite like how Payloader's arms act as stilts for the robot. Bro's handstand is keeping the robot alive, and I love they kept that for Combiner Wars. But then we get to the body, which, okay, yeah, it's cool the crane breaks apart to form the chest, but when you attach the robot head, and I do use attach very loosely, you slide it on and there's nothing to grip onto it. No tabs, no pegs, nothing. It's purely friction with his smooth plastic. And given the arms attached to the chest, in essence, if you bend him forward ever so slightly, his entire chest and arms can come crashing down. The super wing looks like it would help keep it in place, but no, that comes crashing down too. But here he is, the man himself, and on just looking at him, he's certainly charming in a lot of ways. He is double the size of a lot of Transformers of the time, and compared to a lot of other combiners, the fact that his pieces are so uniform in color and aesthetic actually does give him a surprisingly solid shape and silhouette. Plus his hand has this kick spring-launched fist gimmick that I just adore. The neck is articulated to go back and forth, although it has a tendency to lean forward, probably due to age. The legs aren't articulated at all, but I can forgive that as that wasn't uncommon in other Transformers toys. Just looking at this guy, there is a lot to love. Devastator himself is a great design, and one that deserves to keep coming back. Transformers are not just for looking, and Devastator, when you actually mess with him, it's like a dominoes of failure. His stupid cod piece isn't actually attached to him, it's hanging in the air like a loincloth, meaning if you hold him by the waist, there's a high chance of it pinging off. Not that I'd recommend grabbing him because the slightest bit of pressure can result in the entire chest and arm arrangement falling over. And given that this big bastard is extremely top heavy with not enough weight at the back, the slightest movement can set him off. You try to push him into some kind of pose, he starts falling out. You try to readjust and his stupid crotch plate pings off. You attach that, he starts falling apart again. You reattach him and an arm pings off. Do you see where I'm going with this? Devastator is no fun to play around with or pose because he'll break apart at the slightest bit of pressure, like my teenage years. Good lord, I can't imagine how this must have been for a kid in the 80s. And I know the plastic ages and some joints wear out, but this is a case where some design changes would go a long way. Like a hole here and a tab here would have made a world of difference. It wouldn't have even changed much. What makes it even worse is they keep re-releasing G1 Devastator with almost completely unchanged mechanics, usually with just a paint job. Nothing to actually fix this thing to make it more stable. Nothing to fix the big issues, especially infuriating given that there are plenty of cases of re-releases of other figures fixing massive problems. With the recently launched Missing Link series, we got that awesome re-release of G1 Optimus with revamped articulation that was still loyal to the toy from the 80s. Wouldn't that be great for Devastator here? Instead of just, ooh, now he's colored like a Tonka truck. $90, please. I think that's what makes Devastator here all the more frustrating for me. The potential is there for something great, and even during the 80s, there was better. They had started to make big combining robots in Japan with the excellent DX Chojokin figures Bandai was making for Super Sentai, which sure were bigger and didn't have another robot they had to turn into, but they were a lot more stable compared to this big oaf. And I'm at least glad Devastator figures don't end with this giant glass cannon. Devastator, being as famous as he is, has been a big favorite for third-party figures, knockoffs, and official figures over the years. So there's no shortage of Devastators out there, including the recently announced Studio Series figures. Doesn't matter if it's classics, Combiner Wars, the upcoming Studio Series, Movie Devastator, or a figure from one of the dozens of third-party companies. If you're looking to get your own Devastator, please ignore all the re-releases of the G1 toy unless they fix the friggin' issues with stability. I don't know what to think in the end. I'm giving this thing 2 Marvel vs. Capcom Infinites out of 5. It's functional, I guess, and on first glance appears to be what I want, but the more you play with it, the worse it gets. And that's the thing, I don't want to just look at a Transformer. I want to play with him too. How am I supposed to do stop motion with him?